Behind me might be the best deal on a boat I've gotten in a really long time. Let me take you guys on a quick little walk around here. Starting things off hot with a 50 horsepower Johnson 2-stroke oil injected. We've got an oil injection reservoir here. We got the VRO pump inside. This thing is just a beauty. We got a few paint chips and some sun fading on the cowling, but that's no big deal. Come around starboard side here. Pretty standard metal railing all the way around. Look at that, this sucker hadn't been registered since 2015. Overall, the trailer is in immaculate shape. I mean, there's some rust on the winch here, but that's always to be expected. Really nice spare. There is a suspicious JB weld or some sort of substance here. Not sure if this was just preventative maintenance because it is on both sides. A couple chips here. Not sure. We'll find out though. Other than that, the pontoons look like they're in really nice shape. I got up underneath. They look super good. Port side also looking good. All the side bunks and the plywood on this pontoon, I mean, it is just rock solid. Got our nav lights up front as well as some nice spotlights. Same thing over here and back around here. Transom is in really good shape. Nothing wrong with that. No cracking, no splits. Really good shape. Oh. Like I said, guys, the wood, deck's solid. Feels really good. Run-of-the-mill little console here. Nothing really special about it. Definitely gonna need to get a new fire extinguisher so I don't get written up again. Got a little storage bin. Bruh. Ew. Soggy toilet paper water, and a throwable flotation device. And last but not least, before I let you guys know how much I gave for this thing, let's check out the condition of this outboard. Oh my God. This motor is mint. Motor feels like there's lots of compression. I mean, truly and honestly, this motor is just looking so clean. Without further ado, I spent $1,800 on this entire thing. The engine, the pontoon, and the beautiful trailer, all in all, 1,800 bucks. This boat is just prime time for a fix and flip and make a few $1,000s, but I don't really want to sell it just yet. I'm gonna get this sucker running. Hopefully. This pontoon's gonna be home base for a whole bunch of shenanigans. Definitely got some insane plans for this boat and what I'm going to turn it into. So without further ado, let's grab a battery and see what we got out of this motor. All right, time to see if this power trim works. Oh, come on. Look at that. Let's make sure this other trim switch works too. Let's go, dude. Working power trim is awesome. That's gonna save me a bunch of money compared to if that wasn't working. Next thing I always wanna do is I wanna confirm that the ignition system and the starter is working okay, but I've got a small problem. When I bought the boat, the seller did not have a key. So we're gonna have to figure something else out, either a new ignition or something with a fresh key, we'll see. For right now though, guys, without a key in order to activate the circuit inside the solenoid and send power to the starter, I'm gonna need to figure out a way to get around that. I did already show you guys how to do this in a previous video, but it was also a different style solenoid where the posts were both up top and easy to get to, and you can lay a screwdriver on it. Basically what I have here is just some 10 gauge wire with a 30 amp fuse in the middle. Basically what we want to do here is we want to put one lead on this top post right here, and we want to put the other lead on this hot post up top. Connecting these posts will essentially bypass the solenoid and just send power straight to the starter. Nice. Now that we've confirmed the ignition system's working, I'm gonna go ahead and get some compression readings on this motor. $125. Beautiful compression on top. Let's see what we got out of the bottom. And 114. We're looking for within a 10% variance of each cylinder. 125 and 114 are 9.6% apart. So this passes just barely, but it hasn't been started in a long time. It's super common for old engines like this when they sit for a long time. You'll see some different compression numbers, but after you get it running, they'll usually even themselves up pretty good. So we'll check again after we run it. We got good compression. Let's go ahead and see if we're getting spark to the engine. I'm showing no spark on either cylinder. So what I did is I took the old spark plugs out and I put 2 brand new ones in. And now we're going to retest with an open air gap tester. So we'll see. As of right now, this engine does not have any spark on either cylinder. So I'm gonna take you guys through the troubleshooting process to figure that out. First thing you want to do when you have an engine that doesn't have spark on either cylinder is check your stop circuit, so the kill switch. So this is going to be our kill wire. We're going to go ahead and pop this out. Whoa! Whoa! Whole bunch of corrosion. Something gunky on there for sure. No good. Not sure how I feel about a black cat running around in front of me as I'm finding a bunch of corroded wires on this engine, but we'll see. We'll see. So before we start doing anything about that, I'm gonna go ahead and check all the other pin wire connections on the engine just to make sure they're not in similar shape.
A few moments later.
Haven't found any other bad connections, but although this is definitely a likely issue that is causing problems, we're gonna push on with the regular diagnosis procedure. I have pulled the black and yellow kill wire. Well, let's reconnect these and retry spark. Okay, that wasn't the issue. However, for the remainder of our diagnosis, we're gonna leave this unattached just to have it completely ruled out of a possibility while we test other things. First thing I always do whenever I encounter an engine with no spark is I grab my multimeter. There are a few simple tests you can do as far as reading resistance, as well as cranking voltage that can really help you diagnose issues with things like the stator and the timer base right away. I always like to test as much as I can just with some quick multimeter readings, just in case I get a hit early and save myself some time taking parts off and doing all that type of stuff. First thing I'm gonna check is the stator. These are the wires coming out of my stator underneath the flywheel. We've got a brown yellow, an orange, and an orange black. I've got my spec chart pulled up from CDI. As you can see, from brown to brown yellow, CDI is calling for between 650 and 850 ohms. With my leads on the brown and brown yellow, we are currently sitting at 0.799 k ohms, which translates to 799 ohms, which is perfectly within spec. So the brown wires are good. From orange to orange black, factory is calling for 360 to 440 ohms, and we are reading 0.396 k ohms, which is 396 standard ohms. So this is also good. To 100% rule out that the stator is not the problem, you would have to do a voltage test while cranking the engine. However, from my personal experience, whenever I have bad voltage, I also have bad resistance. So for now, just to save time, I'm gonna move on from this and test the timer base. The timer base is underneath the stator and ends up here at this white, green, and blue wire. From both white to blue as well as white to green, we should be between 25 and 30 ohms. From white to green, we've got 27 ohms, so that's perfect. And now checking from white to blue, also 27 ohms, so that is also in spec. As of right now, I don't have any extreme concern with the stator or the timer base. So now's when we have to kind of sit back and think about this motor and how it's set up. It's very common on engines that are 2 cylinders or more when you don't have spark on either cylinder for the issue to be the stator or the timer base. A lot of times on 2-cylinder engines, each cylinder will have its own separate ignition coil. If that were the case on this motor and I didn't have spark on either cylinder, I certainly wouldn't rule out the ignition coils, but I would think that those being the issue is a lot less likely. This engine in particular has one ignition coil that fires both cylinders. So this is now another primary suspect for having no spark on either cylinder. These things are notorious for going bad. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop this out. It's just 2 bolts. I'm gonna do a visual inspection of it. Here's our ignition coil. and looking around. Look at that. See all this cracking? Once this starts to get crack in it, it can let in a lot of moisture and really ruin these things. So anytime you see cracking on your ignition coil, they are either dead or going to be dead very soon. I'm gonna pop on down to the parts store, get a new ignition coil, and see if that fixes our issue. We are back with a brand spanking new shiny ignition coil. See how much better that looks. Okay, we got our new ignition coil put in. If this is not the issue, that's okay, because this old one is just in such bad shape. It definitely needs done anyways. Got our gap tester hooked back up. Let's see if we get any spark. Just like that, baby, we are back in business. Let's go. And the bottom cylinder is good too. We have spark back on both cylinders, which is super awesome. The next thing I do might be a little bit controversial, might have some differing opinions in the comments, but I am going to disable the oil injection. This is a 25-year-old motor, guys, and I do not trust these old VROs. Too many horror stories on these VROs going out and oil not making its way into the fuel mixture, and perfectly beautiful engines like this just blowing up. For me personally, if I'm running a two-stroke engine, I want to premix it. It's not a hassle for me. I don't like oil injection. Call me old-fashioned, but we're gonna disable it, and I'll show you how. First thing we do is we find our oil tank and we follow the line all the way to right here. There are a few different ways you can do this, different ways you could plug the line, but we have to cut off oil supply. What I'm just gonna do is I'm gonna cut the oil line. I'm gonna shove a bolt inside of it and just give it a lot of tape. There's definitely a myth going around that if you delete the oil injection, you also have to get rid of this VRO fuel pump and replace it with a regular fuel pump. That's not true at all. All you gotta do is just plug the oil line and this pump will still be perfectly good for regular gasoline. Okay, just cut my oil line. I've got a bolt around the same diameter. Just gonna shove this in, just like that. Okay, went around it just with some tape to make sure it's as airtight as I can get it. Oil supply is officially cut off. After the oil supply is cut off, the next thing you want to do is find this gray and brown wire coming out of the oil tank. Follow it all the way through the motor. For me, those wires end up right here, and it's just a quick, simple disconnect. With these disconnected, put them in a safe space out of the way, tape over them if you want. Leave everything intact just in case the next owner wants to re-enable the VRO. The final wires you need to disconnect is this one big black clip, and it's got a black, tan, purple, and gray wire. Go ahead and unclip that, and then we'll be ready to go. All right, with these disconnected, we are officially VRO free. This pump is still fine to pump the fuel from an external fuel tank that's pre-mixed 50-1. All right, we got our external fuel tank, got our battery, VRO's disabled, we have spark. This engine, in theory, is ready to start. The only other thing that I've got to do before I want to start this motor is I got to get a new ignition with a key in this thing. Got our key. Okay, our new key is put in. Before I give this thing a crank, I want to explain something real quick to you guys because I can already hear the comments. I squirted some premix and a little bit of two-stroke oil in each cylinder. That's okay. If you guys have seen my videos before, you might have noticed that this pontoon is not in my driveway, my normal home base. It's too big to fit in my little in-town driveway, but I got this little storage lot. The only issue is that it doesn't have a water hookup, so I am going to turn this motor on for a split second. This motor is going to be perfectly fine just to turn over and see if it'll pop or what it's going to do. No part of the engine is going to be harmed by this, except a very small chance that the impeller does, but I already have a spare and I'm going to replace it anyways. So if this motor fires up for a split second and sounds steady, I'm taking it to the lake for the official test run. So let's find out. All right, that's good enough for me. And just like that, guys, this boat is ready to strap down to the trailer and get on the water. Guys, I've got a lot of money, time, and just hard work in general invested in this boat. I want to make sure I get to and from the lake safely every time I go, and that is why I am going to tell you guys about Strappino. Installing this ratchet strap system from Strappino is so easy, guys. You're gonna drill a hole straight through your frame, slide the bolt through with a couple washers and a nice locking nut. All we do is lift this release handle up, These are fully retractable tie-down ratchet straps. I'm gonna take it straight up top and just like a normal strap, tighten it down. Let me tell y'all something. When I slap something and say that it ain't going anywhere, it's not going anywhere. That ain't going nowhere. Highly encourage you guys, go check out Strapino's store. Whether you have a bass boat, a pontoon, a personal watercraft, Strapino makes a strap for it. For a limited time only, guys, and this offer is only for you. You can use code BOATBUSTERS at checkout for 10% off. So no matter what weekend toy you're towing, get yourself Strapino wherever you're going. I just made that up. That was pretty cool. Let's get to the lake. We are at the lake. Gonna go ahead and drop this boat in. We're not gonna bring it off the trailer yet, but we are gonna get this motor in water so we can see how she runs, see if she pumps water. Let's get this down there and find out. Alright guys, so we backed the boat into the water, we dropped it down, fired it up. It did not run well enough for us to be able to hit the lake and go for a little cruise. However, it did fire up. It did pump really good water and the pontoons don't leak, which is awesome. It does appear that we've got some fuel issues with the motor. She does not want to stay running. It doesn't seem delivery related because I was pumping the primer bulb constantly and it was still dying. Unfortunately, this situation smells like a clogged low-speed jet and a carburetor. Let's get back to the lot. Let's pull these carburetors off and go through, see if we need a rebuild, see what's going on. Four nuts later, we've got the carburetor assemblies pulled off. As far as difficulty of reaching these nuts, this actually really was not bad at all. Sometimes you'll be working on these old engines and you'll be scratching your head really thinking that the Johnson engineers were really enjoying their time in the 70s, so glad to be in the 90s on this one when stuff makes sense. We are going to look into the top carburetor first. Oh yeah, tons of crud in there. No wonder she won't run. What are you? You're not on the part diagram. Get out of there. Bottom carburetor is just as dirty. That little drain reservoir completely clogged. Under the float, gunk everywhere. And check this out on the bottom carburetor. I don't even know, like flaming hot Cheeto dust or something. All the parts seem okay. I actually don't think it needs the rebuild kit. I'm gonna clean everything out really good, blow it all out with carb cleaner, and reinstall it on the motor and see what we got. Both carburetors are officially spotless, guys. Pretty much every jet on both carburetors were either totally or partially clogged. It's actually crazy that the motor even fired up and ran for a few seconds in the first place. You can tell this engine just wants to run. It's been sitting for years, so we're gonna give her what she wants. We're gonna put these back on and see how she runs. Unfortunately for us, we got the bottom carb buttoned up. We got one nut on the top carburetor and then the other nut like this that holds the top carb on. I dropped it and it disappeared into the vast dark void underneath the power head. It's kind of like the law, or maybe it's physics, chemistry, I don't know, but you can't work on something without at least one annoying hiccup. If you didn't have anything go wrong or have any annoying hiccups, then you probably didn't fix it right. Pretty sure that's the rules. We're gonna pop on down to Lowe's, get us another one of these, and then wrap this thing up. And now my 1/2-inch wrench has just completely vanished. There's definitely some supernatural forces at play when you're working on engines. Wrenches and screwdrivers in particular, they like to disappear into the void and then sometimes reappear like 15 minutes later in a spot you've checked 5 times. Nuts like to run away and hide in the deepest, darkest corners of engines, especially when you're out in the heat. A whole bunch of weird stuff going on. Till I find my wrench in 15 minutes, which I'm sure it'll appear. 13mm should get the job done. That was not there a minute ago. But the carburetors are completely back on, guys. These carbs are spotless. The floats are working properly. Put a new fuel filter on. Let's head to the lake and find out. Well, she's purring like a kitten. I think a little celebration joyride is in order. Motor's humming, running perfect. Just had ourselves a nice ride. I'm gonna sit here and soak in this view. Got the whole lake to myself. Obviously the pontoon still looks hideous, guys, but it is a blank slate for anything that we want to do with it. And trust me, I've got plans that you guys are gonna want to see. If you guys learned anything from this video or enjoyed it, really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button for me. Love you guys. See you in the next one.